I'm not saying that it doesn't work. I'm just saying that it's tragic that Barbie needs to do all of this just to look good on screen. Barbie's skincare routine in real life is tragic. Like, it's problematic. It's kind of scary. There's some aspects of this that are brilliant and really, really good, and others that are just downright scary. Vogue wrote a really great article breaking down what Margot Robbie, who plays Barbie in the new movie, and what her other co-stars were doing for skincare during the 5 to 6 months that they were actually shooting in England. You see, when it comes to shooting movies, it obviously takes a long time. And while some scenes were shot in LA is one of the most expensive places that you can produce a movie. So areas like England are less expensive, and that's where this Barbie movie happened to be filmed. Now, when Warner Brothers was producing this movie, they paired Margot Robbie and the cast of Barbie with a skin expert, someone who literally does skin treatments like facials, but also does cold lasers and liver detoxes. The 10 years, oh God, 13 years now, well, 2009, the 14 years that I have been in the beauty, the aesthetic, and the emergency medicine industries are literally tearing me apart on the inside when I think about liver detoxes and diet teas. But let's talk about the good, the bad, and the downright questionable of what Barbie in real life went through to get her skin for the movie, and whether or not this is a standard that we as viewers should be holding ourselves to. Jasmina Vico is the owner of a skin clinic in London, and it looks like she's been working in the industry for nearly 20 years. She has not only great experience, but some great devices. But there are a couple of devices that are so questionable, which yes, Margot Robbie and the Barbie cast used. Specifically, Barbie's routine didn't just include skincare. She came in for regular facials, but they also did cold lasers, things like lymphatic drainage, chemical peels, some microneedling, crushed up pills rubbed into the skin, liver detoxes, and vagus nerve stimulation. Yes, cranial nerve 10. Let's talk about this, because when I read this, I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, what is happening and where's the actual science to back this up? First, let's start with facials. Almost all facials have the same basic components, things like a steam and a cleanse, a massage, and then some sort of treatment. But apparently the Vico facial is very special, and it includes ice balls. Now, ice balls scare me as someone who has seen firsthand frost nip and frost bite. Thankfully not on myself, but on other people. And if you've ever gotten an ice burn, you know the absolute pain, the scarring, the skin damage, and the potential keloid scars that can result from that. I absolutely say steer clear of putting ice directly on the skin. There is something called cryotherapy or cold therapy, which can be good for the skin, or using metal tools to rub across the skin to help to depuff or to do lymphatic drainage. But that's very different than rubbing balls of ice or legit ice straight up on the skin. A lot of people love this as like a DIY hack, but when ice is rubbed directly on the skin, it can cause broken capillaries. Basically, the little blood vessels and veins in your skin can rupture. It can actually cause irritation, and depending on what skincare ingredients you use, or if you have salt on your skin from sweat or anywhere in your skincare ingredients, salt actually lowers the freezing temperature of water, making the ice colder, meaning your skin could literally go numb and you're not feeling the damage that you're doing. This, in rare cases, can lead to frost nip or frost bite, where your tissue literally dies. And yes, it can become black, it can go through necrosis, basically tissue and cell death, and cause infection elsewhere on the skin. Is that something that most people will experience if you rub an ice cube on your skin? Probably not, but it is definitely not recommended. And if you're putting ice on your skin and you're not using a tool, please use a barrier in between. But apparently, part of this signature facial includes ice balls that are rubbed on the skin. I would recommend just taking a good old sheet mask and throwing it in the fridge, or literally just take the moisturizer that you already use, store it in the fridge, so number one, it lasts longer, and number two, it gives you that cooling sensation. It sounds like the main goal of this facial is to reduce inflammation, so the puffiness and the redness, as well as make sure that the skin barrier is intact. Remember that the skin's barrier is basically our skin's ability to keep the bad stuff out and the good stuff, aka your body, in. And if your skin is dry or cracked or has wounds on it, or if you've over-exfoliated, that skin barrier can be damaged and your skin just looks lackluster, it's more prone to irritation and inflammation, and you could get infections, which yes, include acne, or again, can even be cellulitis. Cellulitis is basically infection of your skin that spreads, and it is not fun. So keep that skin barrier intact, and let's practice good hygiene, my friends. Wash your hands. Apparently, the cast of Barbie would go in about once or twice a week for this type of facial, and the facial often included what's called a cold laser. When I saw this was very interesting to me, because we know that things like CO2 lasers or pico lasers or clear and brilliant are amazing for skin resurfacing. It's like, if you want to look like a hard-boiled egg, if you want to look like a glazed donut, lasers will get you there. But for anyone who's done a laser or looked into them or works in the medical aesthetic world, you know that lasers have downtime. So in my mind, I was like, wait, am I reading this right? They're doing lasers and then she's going on set? The details, my friend, are in the type of laser. This cold laser is very interesting. It's what's considered a low-level laser. So it isn't ablative to the skin. It basically doesn't damage the skin like traditional lasers do. Although traditional lasers are going to give you a better effect. Some people say that cold lasers don't work. Cold lasers are usually used in pain management and they're often found in chiropractic offices, but some people do use them on the skin. It's basically like a very low infrared, but there's absolutely no heat, which is therefore why it's called a cold laser. Because it is a low-level laser, it really does not have the same benefits of laser. It's just a name that they're putting on there because it's technically shooting, a wavelength of light at the skin. But I guess that was part of this protocol, which again, for someone who needs to be on camera and can't look red or irritated, that makes sense. Now, the other thing that didn't make sense to me that was just tragic is the idea of microneedling before going on set. Again, microneedling is literally putting needles, micro stamps or holes inside of your skin. And the reason for doing this is because the skin will identify that damage is happening and your skin, being a part of your immune system, it's part of your integumentary system, will say, hey, immune system, let's go fight. And it'll send a bunch of cells to the area to rebuild collagen, to rebuild elastin, to protect your skin, and yes, actually cause inflammation. So when I heard that they were trying to decrease inflammation, but then they're microneedling, I'm just like, wait, the wires are crossing in my head. But then you have to think there are many different forms of microneedling. You see, the reason that I believe microneedling should only be done by professionals is because you can do a lot of damage with it. Microneedling can be done with very, very tiny needles that barely prick the skin and don't draw blood at all, whereas others, boom, you need to use like lidocaine, you need to use numbing cream. Those needles go in deep and your face will bleed. And especially if someone's prone to keloid scars or doesn't sanitize properly, you could literally get sepsis. Like you could literally have bacteremia and your entire body could shut down. We don't want that, and that's why we want to do things right and in a sanitary manner, okay? Okay. But just like lasers, microneedling takes time to heal. Could you imagine having a bloody face where basically your skin is stamped with like a needle press and then you go and you walk onto a film set? No, that doesn't happen. So while this Vogue article does not specify the level of needles, I have a sinking suspicion that if microneedling was used regularly, it was a very, 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 very tiny needle that barely punctured the skin and probably did not draw blood. Even that small little stamp can still kind of stimulate the skin and stimulate your immune system, basically sending a bunch of these immune cells to the area and promoting collagen and elastin to be built. And remember, for anyone who struggled with scars in the skin, often it is things like lasers or microneedling that can make a huge difference. So it makes sense that they would want to do this. But in my mind, I'm like, well, just do the ablative lasers and the intense microneedling way before you have to go on set. And that way the results are already there and the maintenance is minimal instead of literally every single week getting microneedling and a laser done. I love beauty treatments, but when it's overkill, it's overkill. But we're not done yet. Chemical peels. Oh, chemical peels. Now, I love a good chemical peel. I do them on others, I do them on myself. But when you combine chemical peels on a weekly basis with exfoliating acids in a skincare routine, that sounds like we're stripping our skin's barrier. And isn't that what we just wanted to rebuild? Again, a lot of these things are just crossing in my mind, and it makes me think that I'm missing some critical information. Chemical peels are fantastic because you're literally using acids to go into the skin and break down skin cells. If it's something like a salicylic acid peel or a Jessner peel, it can actually dissolve the oil that kind of coats your skin and hangs out inside of your skin. Or if it's something like an alpha hydroxy acid, like a glycolic acid or lactic acid peel, it can actually go into your skin and break down the skin cells themselves, specifically the desmosomes. Think of them as little staples that hold your skin together. But if you break those down, the skin can exfoliate off and look baby smooth. But if you've ever gotten a chemical peel, you know that your skin does what? Oh, it peels. Yes, that's why it's called a chemical peel. So in my brain, I'm like, how is Margot Robbie and how are all these beautiful Barbies getting chemical peels, having their faces peel off, and then going on set? And that makes me think that it is a low level. In addition, Margot Robbie has like a $1,600 skincare routine, like 1600, like the cost of rent. And apparently she uses acids in her day-to-day routine. So my question is, if you're using acids day-to-day plus chemical peels, that is literally exfoliating the skin, removing dead skin cells, but also removing some living skin cells. How are we keeping our skin barrier intact? Apparently one part of this facial is actually called sensate. Now this is something brand new to me, but there is this rock-like apparatus that is placed on the chest that is supposed to stimulate the vagus nerve. I kid you not. Even the Vogue article specifically specified that this little-known stress relief device that is the size of the palm of your hand emits infrasonic frequencies and sound, which signal to the all-important vagus nerve to relax the body, regulate the nervous system, boost serotonin, and reduce stress. What the f? I've never heard of an over-the-counter at-home device that does this, but apparently it's sold on Amazon and it has like 4.8 stars, and I'm like, do I need to try this? So let's talk about cranial nerve 10, aka X, aka the vagus nerve. We're gonna talk medicine here for a second. Has anybody, either themselves or known someone who has passed out when using the toilet? Like if you're straining a little bit too hard, if you are constipated and you're, sitting there pushing and you just faint or fall over, or someone you know specifically, maybe someone who's a little bit older does, that is literally vagus nerve stimulation. This nerve, called cranial nerve 10, literally goes throughout our entire body, starting in our heads all the way down past our heart into our gut, etc. And yes, there are things to be said about the gut-brain connection. And yes, the vagus nerve is very important when it comes to stress and stress management. That's honestly why deep breathing can have such a relaxing effect, because it's literally helping with the vagus nerve. But the idea that instead of using deep breathing, we're gonna put this weird $500 rock-like device on our chests, and it's going to emit these infrasonic waves. It's a sound wave that is below what the human ear can hear, and that's gonna somehow magically increase serotonin and de-stress us. Like laying down with your eyes closed and just deep breathing will de-stress you. Again, very intriguing, very innovative, but also kind of has me going, what? I'm not saying that it doesn't work. I'm just saying that it's tragic that Barbie needs to do all of this just to look good on screen. Because if she's doing all of this every single week, how are you and I supposed to keep up with this? But remember, that's not all. No, there's more. The tea. Oh yeah, we're talking liver detox tea is apparently what was used, specifically milk thistle. Let me tell you a little bit about milk thistle, because I can tell you from personal experience, number one, it tastes like a staph infection. It makes you want to throw up, and at least in my experience, it did not help my skin or my acne. Milk thistle has been around for ages, and in some holistic practices or in holistic medicine, milk thistle is used for things like liver cirrhosis, essentially for liver health. However, the idea of detoxing the liver or flushing the liver technically, anatomically, does not happen. You cannot flush your liver. Using unregulated supplements at unknown amounts can be harmful, especially things like milk thistle or St. John's wort that can actually interact with depression medication like SSRIs or SNRIs. And it can be really dangerous to take plants that have medicinal properties and to mix them with traditional medications, or for people who have diagnosed or undiagnosed medical conditions. But nonetheless, milk thistle and this liver detox tea was created and consumed. And again, I love that the Vogue writer in the article really did their due diligence and like quoted things appropriately. And it really sounds like the owner of this clinic, Jasmina Vico, has some great tools, some great experience, and some great resources, but they literally quoted her saying that bitter things detox and flush the liver. And I'm like, tell me something that is less anatomically true. God save me. And again, this kind of goes into that idea of we see influencers and people promoting and consuming this diet tea, this detox tea. You do not need to detox your body. Your kidneys and your liver detoxes you naturally. You don't need to detox your liver. And if you're struggling with cirrhosis or alcoholism or a liver issue, if your skin is jaundiced and you're yellow, go see a doctor. Go to the doctor. Go to the emergency room. Do not start drinking questionable medications from random backyards of your neighbor, okay? But they would literally brew this milk thistle tea, and among other things, basically this perpetuation of this idea that we need to drink these detox teas and detox our bodies. And again, does this not remind you of exactly what Barbie was chastised for the last 20 years? The idea that Barbie's body is not anatomically correct. And for young women and young men and young binary friends who looked at Barbie's body, they felt bad about theirs, because if Barbie were actually a real person, she would have to walk on all fours. And I do think that the Barbie movie is probably going to address this perfection stereotype versus the real world and what happens when it's not all Photoshop and musicals and pointed toes and pink. But the idea that Barbie IRL and the Barbie cast had to drink these detox liver teas, it kind of just perpetuates that same notion of you have to do all these things to look perfect. And how is anybody supposed to keep up with that? And is it even healthy? Again, there are some medicinal practitioners practitioners who will say that milk thistle can be used for certain reasons. I literally had an aesthetic teacher, Ms. Vicky, back in 2009, and she was like, take this milk thistle from Whole Foods, you know, for your acne. Again, it did not work. It tasted like a staph infection, and I threw up all the time. It was awful. But the idea that we have to subject ourselves to pain, or just the misnomer that beauty is pain, really just sounds like it is being perpetuated in what these beautiful, talented, amazing actors and actresses went through for 5 months while they were filming. And Vico specifically stated some of the benefits. For example, when the liver produces more glutathione or silymarin, it could be beneficial. Silymarin is seen in some skincare products, but it's basically a component of milk thistle, and it basically acts as an antioxidant. Yes, it can be helpful for the liver, but like, this is overkill when it comes to the skin. And while it is true that if you have liver problems, those can show up in the skin. For instance, your hands can get red. It's called palmar erythema. Or sometimes you could actually have like a nevus issue, basically like these birthmarks and these marks that kind of show up on the skin if your liver is failing, or jaundice. If your eyes are yellow, if your skin is level, go to the doctor, get your liver checked out. It is true that issues with the liver can show up in the skin, but it's not like you need to detox your liver or detox your kidneys in order to have good skin. I do like that Vico did promote healthy eating, however. She recommended things like sauerkraut and kimchi and basically fermented foods. We know that fermented foods are wonderful for our digestive system and for our gut, and yes, for the skin when applied topically or when eaten. That's fantastic, that's great. But when it comes to some of these other things, it's questionable and it's tragic. Now, on top of all of that, of course, Margot Robbie and all the other Barbies had to use skincare at home. And again, they were using more acids. They were using vitamin C. They were using growth factors and antioxidants, all of which are great, but apparently they also rubbed ice on their faces and used crushed up aspirin. That's right, let's just take some medications that are meant to be ingested orally and crush them up and rub them onto our face. Number one, this can work, but number two, it can be a problem. A lot of people don't realize that aspirin is chemically related to salicylic acid. Salicylic acid, which we also know as BHA, is often used for the treatment of acne, but it really comes from wintergreen or the willow bark, literally willow trees. Bears used to actually chew on the trees because it would help them with pain relief. Well, salicylin, which is similar to salicylic acid, is what's in aspirin, and that literally has anti-pain benefits, which is why aspirin is used for pain management. And it is true, especially in the way back when people used to crush up aspirin pills and rub them on their faces, and it would help with acne. But that's because they didn't have acne treatments. Use a salicylic acid spot treatment. It is the same ingredient, only it's a skin-soluble form, meaning your skin can actually use the salicylic acid, and you don't have the risk of burning your skin. Because when you crush up aspirin and you're just putting it on your skin, that's meant to go into your stomach where there's acid and to be broken down, not to sit on your skin, which is a very pH and a very different environment than the inside of your body. Again, this is just terrible advice. I know she's a skin expert, and with 20 years of experience, she's obviously got great credentials and she is doing some great things. But at the same time, there's stuff on the other side of the spectrum that are just cockamamie. Keep with the exfoliating acids, keep with the antioxidants, even keep with the stem cells and the growth factors, go for it. But crushing up aspirin and putting it on the skin, like, did they also shove toothpaste on the Barbie's pimples? Get a spot treatment, get a pimple patch. It just makes me question what the heck is going on over there, especially based on what I've seen firsthand in emergency medicine and what I've literally been told and worked with doctors and dermatologists. And being an acne sufferer myself, trust me, I have put everything on my face to get rid of my acne. I was desperate. I did the milk thistle. I have used the toothpaste on my pimples. Dude, I used urine on my face once thinking it would help me. Do you know what it did? It made me smell like piss and it disgusted myself. Literally, I have tried anything. And when you have acne, when you're that desperate, you will go to any lengths. But here's the issue. When we, as young, impressionable people, viewers of media, are looking at these people that we idolize or we think are so pretty or Barbie perfect, and then we're reading that they're doing these liver detoxes and rubbing crushed up pills into their skin, we might be so desperate and so hurting with our body image or with ourselves that we try to go emulate that, not realizing that number one, it can be ineffective, but number two, it can be dangerous. What happened to just letting our body take care of itself and giving it a helping hand instead of thinking that we need to do like a liver detox or like your brains out diarrhea tea? It scares me. And that's what makes me feel like this routine is tragic. If I were the esthetician in charge of this, I would do things so totally differently. First off, I would recommend a doctor, a derm, a plastic surgeon to intervene. Literally provide those invasive aesthetic treatments that make you look like a hard-boiled egg or a glazed donut with glass skin. Do that ahead of time so the skin is able to heal. And then during the 5 months of actual shooting, you're able to just focus on maintenance ingredients. You could do things like skin barrier support without microneedling and damaging the skin or invasive lasers. And maybe we stay away from the liver detoxes and the diet teas that perpetuate these ideas of having to have the perfect body. And if it takes this many diet teas, this many vagus nerve stimulation devices to get skin that's good enough to show up for the Barbie movie, what does that mean for you and me who are comparing our skin or our bodies to these people that we see in media? It is 100% beyond okay to be a work in progress and to love yourself as you are. And remember, a lot of these movies focus on filters, on lighting, on Photoshop. I literally have this app on my phone called Casa, and it literally lets me control the wall outlet. But look at how different that looks. When I don't have all the fancy lights, my skin looks completely different. No filters. Let's look at them scars. You see it? Now you see it? Yeah? Now you don't. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? And if we just remind ourselves that there's a lot of lighting and filters and Photoshop and lies that go into media, maybe we won't compare our skin or our bodies to that of a Barbie. And a lot of the actors and actresses have really great genetics and access to a ton of treatments, even beyond what we just discussed here, that enable them to look a certain way in media. Do not compare your reflection to somebody else's. That being said, Margot Robbie sounds like an amazing person. I actually want to see this movie. I also want to see the Ariel, the Little Mermaid movie, and I think that I might try to. If anybody wants to watch with me on a live stream, let me know. And do remember to stay hydrated both orally and topically, but preferably not shit your brains out tea. Reapply that SPF. This article did not mention SPF once, which again, all of the red flags are red flagging. They're not even red flags, they are pink flags at this point. But always remember to be beautiful both inside and out. I love you, and I cannot wait to see you in this next video. Love you guys. Bye.